What? Who is that?
Play Shadow Priest. It's the #1 spec.
Who are you?
I am the metal.
And Warcraft logs.
Well, folks, there you have it. There's nothing more reliable and trustworthy than whispers in your head, and if we cannot trust that, then what can we trust? In that case, in today's video, you will get the talents, gear, essences, and rotation for Shadow Priest in 8.2 for Mythics and Dungeons. So stay tuned, because we're starting with the talents. On the first row, you take Shadow Ward Void. Having 2 stacks on Mind Blast is very beneficial since you can delay one use of it in favor of moving from a mechanic, repositioning, and things like that. BFA is filled with mechanics that force range to constantly min-max their rotation, and this is definitely one tool to do so. Next up, the Utility Row. Utility Row, on the surface, do not provide DPS gains, and at least not directly. They do help with survival and efficiency, which in themselves are tools that increase your DPS. As such, pick whatever you want, but I will recommend Body and Soul. Casting a shield not only places a defensive shield on the target or yourself, it gives the target movement speed to GTFO from bad stuff, and provides you with a bit of insanity so as to not feel like a total DPS loss. Third row is a row with multiple valid options. Well, all are valid and each have a very specific usage. As long as you understand how each function, pick what you like. To start off, Twist of Fate is the only single target option and a very solid choice until you get used to the types of fights you will be in. When looking at AoE damage, specifically in dungeons, the strongest option will probably be Dark Void. This is a very efficient GCD and it works if your tank makes decent to large pulls. This is better when you strive for higher end mythic dungeons where pulling big is a main strategy. For everything else, Misery will be the best alternative. The fourth row takes Psychic Horror. It's a utility row, I know, but this option provides you with a strong stun for dangerous adds, be it in dungeons or raids. There are multiple uses for this option, especially if your group needs an extra stun. If not, or if your party wants more interrupts, Last Word is the alternative. The Priest Interrupt is actually a silence, which in its functionality is better, but the cooldown is very large to compensate. This talent addresses the issue nicely. The fifth row, you'll again have 2 options. Auspicious Spirits is a passive that works best with a high base crit chance from your gear. It's very good in fights where you will fight targets that are spread out. It has indeed been nerfed and in the process has become balanced with Shadow Crash, which would be your other option. Shadow Crash is better if you can hit ideally 3 or more targets consistently. In single target they are both good, although Shadow Crash will sim better if your crit is too low, usually below 18%. The sixth row, you take Lingering Insanity for both single target and AoE situations. It performs the smoothest out of all options when it comes to the rotation. The higher your eye level, the better this talent will be. This row is essentially a give you a faster void form row, and this baby takes the cake. Last row, only one valid option again, and that is Legacy of the Void. No, not that Legacy of the Void. The old gaudy Legacy of the Void. This talent also serves the purpose of giving you faster void forms, and all of them with 5% increase in damage. Nothing special here. The cast time is reduced to get into void form. You can enter starting with 60 insanity and the overall damage is higher, so what's not to love? The talent build serves to give you a starting point. There's more to Shadow than just picking the talent and going out and dishing damage, but the in-depth talk will be for another time. Or it can be sooner than you think. Where? On twitch.tv/MarcelianOnline, of course, where we go on stream and talk more in-depth stuff that usually do not make into our guides, and you can have first hand on that. Maybe you can have a question that you can ask, and if we cannot answer your question, then there's definitely somebody in chat proficient that can help you out with an answer. So twitch.tv/MarcelianOnline, follow. The general stat priority for Shadow is almost standard, with a few deviations depending on your gear choice. The industry standard dictates you take Haste and Crit with almost the same priority, although each will have a different effect. Mastery is close to versatility next, with intellect really low at the bottom, meaning fuck eye level. There's a big discussion when starting to gear your shadow, whether you go for more crit or more haste. Crit synergizes more with your build, but haste will work in 100% of the situations and should be your main goal when you start out. For the most optimal way to figure it out, you can sim your character to figure out the stat weights. This will only tell you which is the next most important single point of stats, not the best item. To figure out stuff like rings, then you will need to sim your gear. We recommend this in every guide, and it might put you off, which is why we also give you a general point of reference that you can follow for very good results. But the fact remains, min-maxing cannot be done without websites like raidbots.com, since that's where you can get sims like mine, which sees versatility above mastery and haste above crit ever so slightly, even though my crit chance is fairly low. This is the point where shadow can get very tricky and requires a deeper dive to uncover. Isn't it lovely? Keeping it simple though, we will move to the trinkets. The first one you should get is the Highborn Compendium of Storms, which is craftable by inscription or purchasable on the auction house for a modest sum, considering how freaking good this is at 400 eye level. How good is it really, you ask? Well, 9 out of 10 mythic shadow priests still use it, considering they can get gear over 40 eye levels higher. So yeah, it's good. The other option, which seems to be a community favorite on top of its glorious performance, will be Leviathan's Lure for single target, which drops from the underwater behemoth in Eternal Palace. The other alternative for AoE is Conch of Dark Whispers, the trinket that drops from Shrine of the Storms, because we cannot have just raid trinkets now, can we? The Conch is good because the crit it provides replaces the crit you would normally have on your Azerite traits. What Azerite traits? Well, to start off, the single target build features Chorus of Insanity, stacked 3 times of course. This is the crit that you can add on top of your gear to make the single target build shine, which focuses on the effects of critical strike. The other trait that builds into this build is Spiteful Apparitions, and you want to stack this as many times without sacrificing Chorus of Insanity or the next trait on the list, which will be Whispers of the Damned. This one should only come as a one-off, meaning you shouldn't stack it since what you want is the Insanity generation, and that does not stack at all. As you can see, all of these 3 focus on you being able to properly crit and make use of your 2 strong dots, Shadow Word Pain and Vampiric Touch. Moving on to the AoE/Mythic Plus build, Chorus of Insanity will be replaced with Searing Dialogue, stacked also 3 times. Take note that I didn't specifically say this is the Mythic Plus only build, but more on AoE, since you can definitely take the previous single target focus build in dungeons as well on Tyrannical. It's more about what you want to deal with. If you are fighting fortified tough weeks with mobs that take a long time to die, then Searing Dialogue is but the first of many traits you will want to get. Next one is Death Throes, again stacked most likely up to twice, because the last spot will be filled by Thought Harvester, a trait you only take once. Again, this last one is kind of mandatory if you go for the Mindshare build, since the synergy is really good. Note that both builds are pretty similar in that there will be a major trait you stack 3 times, a singular trait that rounds up the build, and a filler trait you take as many times as you can and have spots left for, to finish up the synergy. There's a lot more when it comes to Shadow Priest, as there is when it comes to our YouTube content, which you won't have full access to unless you enable those notifications. Hey, don't look at me, I don't really want you to have to push extra anything at this point, but it is what it is. Push the bell. Lastly, essences. A quick disclaimer here. We've consulted with our favorite German philosopher, Karl Marx. No, wait, wrong script. We had a long talk with our biggest patron, Sand the Man, who has been playing Shadow since vanilla, rated both mythic and heroic throughout the expansions, and is one of the people with the deepest knowledge for Shadow I personally ever met. Shout out to you, buddy, for helping us with the video and providing us with some insight that was very valuable. There are a lot of top Shadow Priests that use Memory of Lucid Dreams in their major, which is a more complicated build that requires a lot of practice to pull it off. It's not necessarily the best build to have at the moment, but competes strongly on the first spot with what I will actually recommend you take. And that is Condensed Life Force. This major essence has been the best pick for almost all the DPSers in this tier, especially if you have it at rank 3, which I hope most people have by now. The minor slots can be filled with Memory of Lucid Dreams and or with Crucible of Flame rank 3 if you have it. For dungeons, the major slot will be Essence of the Focusing Iris, with the minor being Memory of Lucid Dreams first and foremost, and anything else that's rank 2 or higher in the second minor slot. It's tricky to recommend the third one since a lot of them are viable and you're better off either simming or taking the best one available. And now that you know your essences, the next thing you need to do is follow us on Twitter, if you're into Twitter of course, because we post all of our updates there, plus questions about different topics and sometimes even asking you guys what you want us to do next, either in a video or a stream. So if you want to be involved, follow us on Twitter and say hi. When you open on a boss, you want to pre-cast Shadow Word Void, apply Pain and Vampiric Touch quickly, then follow it up with a second Shadow Word Void. Mind Flay until you can enter Void form, then enter Void form with a quick Void Bolt as you move to your Void form rotation. A quick note, you can spam Shadow Word Shield on people before the pool to build a little insanity, which will save you the trouble of needing a Mind Flay to enter Void form. Not mandatory since certain tanks are eager to pull. Once you are in Void form, Void Bolt is your most important ability to be cast first, with Shadow Fiend closely after, followed by Shadow Crash if you have it. Shadow Word Void after, Maintain the Dots is next on the priority list, and fill in with Mind Flay. Know that this is a priority list, not the sequence of spells you need to press. When you are not in Void form, the priority shifts a bit. Void Eruption is the most important one, clearly, to get back into Void form. Shadow Fiend next, Shadow Crash after, followed by Shadow Word Void and maintaining the dots. Fill in with Mind Flays. The general priority does not take into account AoE, specifically the AoE talent Dark Void, which you need to cast on cooldown without delaying Void form or Void Bolt, but more important than everything else. As far as the rest of the AoE rotation goes, it's exactly the same as single target, with Mind Sear replacing different spells based on the number of targets present. On 2 or more targets, Mind Sear replaces Mind Flay as the filler. At 6 or more targets, it replaces Shadow Word Void. That's it. Maintain dots on as many targets as you can based on the AoE talent you've chosen for your third row. This is the simple version of the Shadow rotation, and as you can tell, it's mostly a priority system, which is true for most DPS classes. Practice it, and if you want more in-depth knowledge, shout out to warcraftpriest.com, who have compiled some really nice details about Shadow that would have taken us months to figure out. Love your dedication, guys, and passion that you put into the spec. Also, hop on our Discord and you might catch our lovely San, who, surprisingly, is open to help people out, specifically when it comes to the love of his life, Shadow. Because, man, if I'm being completely honest, Shadow Priest is amazing. I will help you with a list of consumables, dear viewer, which will probably be good for you 99% of the time. If you're not pleased, sim, fool! Because really, you can swap one staff for another based on your character, so up to you. Get a Cord of Haste for your ring enchant because haste, and fill your gem slots with Quicksand Spinel because haste. Normally, I recommend getting the Intellect gem once, but it seems poorly and soon it will be nerfed as well, so your choice once again. The weapon should ideally get Machinist Brilliance as the default enchant. If it's too expensive, buy whatever else aligns with your stats. The Greater Flask of the Fathoms clearly as the big buff, and the Potion of Unbridled Fury, since you'll excel at single target like crazy and this potion does the trick. Fill your bellies with the baked potato, again because most of the time 93 haste will be better than 131 intellect. Shadow Priest is not the only meta caster, the Fiery Bastard is as well, and look, we already have a guide for it. Once again, our patrons contributed to a lot making this video possible, especially San. So thank you everybody for all of your support. All the details to our Patreon team and all the goodies included are down below the video. What? You haven't checked below the video? Oh, okay, I'm gonna give you a second. Just check below the video. You've checked? Alright, there you go. That is the Teespring link for our official Warcraft merch, sprinkled with some Marcelian&Online love. So grab your t-shirts, tank tops, hoodies, and mugs and spread the summer love and get your friends into Warcraft. Thanks for watching the video and have an amazing day.